You know, I have an author with me now, Raheem Kassam, who I don't believe has ever been on this program. And he's written a hell of a book. Now, I've only had it for a day, so I'm about one-third of the way through. It's called No-Go Zones, How Sharia Law is Coming to a Neighborhood Near You. This is a incredibly well-written and researched book. Welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. First of all, tell my audience a little bit about your background, if you would.
Sure. Well, I'm, if you couldn't tell by the accent, and I know people on the Patriot channel especially, on Sirius XM will know my voice from the morning radio shows sometimes. I was born in West London to Muslim parents and raised in Ismaili Islam. I studied at the University of Westminster, which is the same university that Jihadi John attended. He was actually 2 years below me. And it's now known, by the way, the University of Westminster is one of the hotbeds of fundamentalist Islam in the United Kingdom, if not in Europe, in an academic sense. I worked on the Brexit campaign. I worked for Nigel Farage, the member of the European Parliament. Travelled with him across the United States as well during your election campaign, and he was supporting your current president. And I'm the editor-in-chief of Breitbart's London bureau, based out of the United Kingdom as well. So it's a sort of a short history there.
Well, that's a great history. And what caused you to write this book in particular?
Honestly, I was in the United States since your election, and I started to notice the divergence between reality and Anderson Cooper, and what a vast chasm it was. Anderson Cooper and the CNNs of the world and these news organizations that have been known, especially in my neck of the woods in Europe, as down-the-line news organizations, were reporting on Islamic immigration into Europe as almost as a success story. Uncritically, and denial was one of the key factors. Denial of the sheer number of terrorist attacks, the fact that these ghettos existed all across Europe, and denial of the fact that there is a vast swathe of Muslims living in the Western world at the moment that don't just not subscribe to Western values, but actually subscribe to something totally antithetical to that. And really this book was born out of frustration. But as you point out, and I'm very grateful for you saying so, this isn't a diatribe. This is research. This is on the ground research. This is real journalism. This is going into these neighborhoods and seeing these things firsthand. And as somebody recently said to me, there aren't a lot of books like that anymore.
And, people might be listening and say, look, America's had issues like this all the time, and we have assimilation. What's going on in Europe now? Has America had issues like this all the time, and is assimilation even possible?
Such a great question, because over the course of writing this book, I really had a serious part of me going, well, Irish immigrants and Italian immigrants and, ghettoization has occurred as the norm, really, for the first generation of migrants into the United States. And I kept that with me writing this. But it transpired that what I found was that actually the second and third generations of those migrants, they were then assimilating, they were then integrating, they were leaving their ghettos, and the second and third generation were, becoming Americans, happily becoming Americans. That almost is the opposite of what's happening with Muslim migration into the West. Actually, what people wanted to do, they were economic migrants. They wanted to own businesses. They wanted to raise their kids. They wanted to, pay their taxes, in so much as anybody wants to pay their taxes. But they had that about them. And what's actually happened is the second and third generations of Muslims in the West are more inclined towards believing in fundamentalist Islam, into believing in Sharia law being the best form of law, into believing that the terrorist attacks of 7/7 in the United Kingdom in 2005, for instance, can be legitimized, in terms of believing that the women should wear, and be forced to wear, by the way, the niqab, hijab, or burqa, and indeed into believing that the strictures of what we have known as the West should be demolished. They're man-made law in these guys' estimation, and they are bunkum as far as they're concerned.
We sit here in the United States, we see what's going on in Sweden, We see what's going on, obviously, in Britain. I've been to Britain. I love Britain. I haven't been there lately. We see what's going on in France and so forth and so on. Is that the future of America if we don't get this under control, our borders under control, and actually manage who comes to this country?
Well, it's not just the future for America, I'm afraid, Mark. It's actually the present in some parts of America. There are neighborhoods across the United States at the moment where this is already taking place, where female genital mutilation is occurring, where it is, in, for instance, Hamtramck in Michigan, 2.1 square mile city. You have 17 mosques. And some of them are, not of concern to me. I don't see them as a threat. But some of them are manifestly a threat. They believe in a form of Islamic jurisprudence that runs completely contrary to the U.S. Constitution and to the values your country was predicated upon. This is already here. The subtitle of the book is How Sharia Law is Coming to a Neighborhood Near You. I would argue that is slightly disingenuous. It's How Sharia Law is Already in a Neighborhood Near You that really should be the title. And it may not be in the next county over. But you can bet your bottom dollar it may be in the next state over from you. These enclaves are popping up here in the United States. And one of the major pushbacks I've heard since publishing this book from an American conservative audience is that, oh, no, it can't happen to us because we have our Second Amendment. Well, I don't suppose and I don't hope that anybody thinks that marching into these neighborhoods armed to the teeth is the solution to this problem. The solution to this problem is things like the RAISE Act that has been floated by President Trump, getting control of your borders, and doing what Teddy Roosevelt actually, thought of as a progressive. Teddy Roosevelt said multiple times over the course of his life, which is adopting a philosophy that if and when immigrants come to the United States and refuse to assimilate, refuse to integrate, refuse to recognize your flag, your anthem, your rule of law, he said, to that immigrant, we must say, they must go back. And that's the sort of attitude you need to adopt again.
I wish we could adopt an attitude like that again. I don't see either political party adopting it. I see the White House going a little bit wobbly. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. We'll know on Tuesday. I see we have we have rogue judges. They are completely out of control. You can't even get an executive order in for a 6-month respite from countries that have either essentially effectively declared war against us, or the government is so ineffective, so eviscerated that we don't even know who they're sending over here. And we have federal judges appointed by Obama and others who say no, that they literally have a due process constitutional right that is extraterritorial to the United States. I don't know how we're going to get this back. Do you know how?
I do know how, and it starts from the ground up. It starts with people educating themselves a little bit more. I respect that I'm such a fan of the American conservative tradition, but I fear in the last few years that you guys, and I say you guys, I include myself in that, we've become a little bit high on the rhetoric and a little bit low on the facts and statistics. And when you go to your town hall meetings, when you speak to your elected representatives, it's good to have hard data to back your claims up. And this is what I've tried to do in the book, is provide people with an underpinning whereby they don't just go, oh, hey, I've got this mosque in my area and I'm concerned about it, but they can say, I'm concerned about it because it's a Deobandi mosque. They follow the Hanafist school of Islamic jurisprudence. They are known for, their ghettoization. They're known for the lack of assimilation. They're known for passing off falsehoods about the Quran, and the Council on American Islamic Relations is complicit in this. And your federal judges are complicit in that too. But the most the worst person that did this over the course of the last 10 years, I'm afraid, was President Barack Obama. He went prostrate before the Muslim and Arab world in 2009 in his Cairo speech, and he chose to selectively quote from one part of the Quran, chapter 5, ayat 32, where it says, whomsoever takes the life of all mankind, whomsoever saves the life of all mankind. People who pay attention in the aftermath of terrorist attacks will know that that is the Council on American Islamic Relations standard stock press release. Barack Obama stopped at, if he had gone to the very next line of the Quran, it says, but whomsoever is causing mischief in the land. And in Islam, mischief in the land is defined as people who work against the proliferation of fundamentalist Islam. It says, whosoever causes mischief in the land, let them be cut off by their left hand and their right foot. and let them burn in the hellfire. But Barack Obama didn't want to say that. He chose to live in Cloud Cuckoo Land. I was about to say he lives in Cloud Cuckoo Land. He willfully deceived the American people about this, and it undermined your whole security apparatus. It pulled away resources from tracking what was going on in your country, and he is complicit, if not treacherous, in the fact that San Bernardino happened, in the fact that Orlando happened, and in the fact that, sadly, Mark, I'm afraid it's going to happen again.
Raheem, this went way too fast. And your book, I'm going to finish reading your book. We're going to talk again. You're really good. And the book is really good, too. No-Go Zones, How Sharia Law is Coming to a Neighborhood Near You. Raheem Kassam of Breitbart of the Patriot channel. Give everyone my best. And God bless you. Take care.
Thank you so much.